Okay, so here we are, and I'm going to begin doing the planning for my character intro. So, a little bit about my creative process. I like to do thumbnails. I like to do them really fast, really loose. It helps me get through a lot of ideas very quickly. And I like to do it very stream of conscious. So, I'll basically put anything that I'm thinking of down onto the page. That way I can get it out of my head and kind of make space for other ideas to come. I kind of call it my Lego bucket method. When you're building something out of Legos and there's a very specific piece that you're looking for in the big bucket of random Legos, it's a lot easier to find the Lego that you're looking for if you take all the pieces in the Lego bucket that aren't the piece that you're looking for. Anyway, what I like to do is I like to start by asking and then answering as many questions as I can about what I'm working on, and then beginning to fill in the blanks or beginning to chase down any feeling that kind of brings up. Okay. So, apologies in advance for my very bad handwriting. So, we're doing I'm going to try and write a little bit neater. How about that? Yeah. So, we're going to be doing a character intro. Okay. So, some parameters around the character intro. I want it to be simple, right? I want it to be focused, like I had mentioned before. We want to focus on the things that are pertinent to showing. So, things about either their hero fantasy or their gameplay abilities. So, I want to focus on mobility, since it's Spider Man. That's an L, right? Mobility. Yeah. And abilities. Okay. And then I'm thinking about the game flow a little bit. It's got to be quick, not too long. I want to keep it moving because where this is going to show up in the game, it's going to be before some kind of a gameplay highlight, right? So let's say 5 seconds max. And I'm going to do it a little bit similar to Overwatch, where there's a frozen moment, or maybe at the very end, maybe a little bit like Rivals, where the last frame is a still frame. So let's say 5 seconds ish. Okay. I'd like to keep it um, pretty contained. So obviously one character, not too many things going on. I don't want to have to depend on a lot of things. I've kind of made my makeshift, like what would be VFX in a pipeline, but I've made the web balls and the web rig that I'm going to be using. And so the version of Spider-Man that I'll be doing, let's say it's Miles, okay? And then so Miles, very different from like Peter or any of the other Spider-Man. He's a lot younger, he's a lot more modern, and so even in the Spider-Verse films, like a lot of the poses he kind of gets into isn't necessarily the traditional comic book Todd McFarlane kind of Spider-Man poses that we're used to seeing. There is an element and a flavor of that, but there's also like this kind of flavor of like almost like things as you would see like modern or urban kids doing, like either skateboarding or like break dancing or things like that, right? So um doing Miles Morales, so not traditional Spider-Man. So that'll kind of influence my poses a little bit. And then I'm going to think a little bit about the abilities, and I'm going to kind of work my way backwards with this a little bit, because if I know that it's going to be around 5 seconds ish and I'm going to end on some kind of frozen moment or a still frame, frozen moment or a still frame. A frozen moment is basically when like the character hits a pose and they're moving in space like really slowly over a period of time, like they kind of hit it and goes, you know what I mean? Kind of slow mo a little bit, so, or almost like bullet time. So frozen moment or a still image at the end. Write that a little bit better. So if I know it's going to end around there, I'm going to work my way backwards, right? I'm probably going to think of a cool pose that I want the character to be in, and then kind of build the performance from there. Okay, so if I'm thinking about what abilities is signature to them, signature to them and like what their gameplay is like, and um, where the fun is in their kit, right? So obviously there's going to be some element of swinging. Most likely it won't be using the ground at all. So it'll probably be in the air the entire time. I'm definitely going to use like a moment where he shoots the web balls. And then I'm basically going to have, okay, so now that I look back at this, I think I've kind of built out the beats for my character intro kind of organically. So if we think about it, right, this will probably be swinging into frame will probably be the first beat. The second beat will probably be shooting the web balls, and then we're going to end on this frozen moment or the still image of like a non-traditional Spidey pose, right? So this would be my third beat. Okay, cool. So I have a very clear idea of the pose that I'd like him to be in when he's shooting the web balls. It's pretty iconic. And like I had mentioned, my favorite version of Spider-Man, or of any kind of video game Spider-Man, is Spider-Man from Marvel vs. Capcom 2. He's got a very specific pose that he kind of gets into when he's shooting the web balls. I'm going to try and do it from memory versus looking at actual reference. I'm going to see what I can come up with first and then like lean on references if I absolutely need to. And you guys will find that as we move along and move forward in this workshop, you'll find that about my workflow. Personally, I like to start with my gut feeling, a gut reaction, and kind of sense memory and what I'm feeling about the moment versus like looking up reference. I like to put together the performance in my head, and that way I can see it in my head. That way, when I get to it's just about execution. So shooting the web ball in particular, I don't know if it should be left or right yet, but let's just say that like it's going to be quarter this way. And he's got this very distinct, like, you can tell my shorthand is very, very rough, but that's all I need. All I care about is making sure that I can understand the pose. He's got this very, very, very exaggerated like arch in his back in the game. In Marvel vs. Capcom 2 anyway. So like in the pose, he's like very hunched like this, and like I believe his legs are kind of like this. So we might be able to see the other leg from the other side. Who knows? When I get into posing, like I might just get rid of those altogether. Not sure if I like these arms. They're twinning a little bit. And again, I don't mind, or maybe not again, but I actually don't mind symmetry in a pose so long as it's intentional. So let's see if we can strengthen this a little bit. So what I think I'll do is I'll take this, and then from here, maybe this is coming into the shoulder, and then this shoulder will be up a little bit higher. And then maybe this arm will be here instead. And then we'll get a little bit of foreshortening. That's not very clear. Yeah, that might be okay. I do like the hunch. Not sure about the frog legs yet. So let's keep going. And then, okay, this is all on the same layer, which is fine. I'm going to go ahead and move this out of the way just so I have some more room to draw. Okay, I like this pose. Not so sure about the frog legs quite yet. I think it might be actually a good idea to get rid of this one. And then let's just try a different variation of leg. So if we're thinking about the gesture and the line of action, right? He's kind of got this thing going on. There are a couple of ways that we can kind of support that, right? The line of action you can see here. It's probably a good idea, actually. I'm kind of liking how this leading edge looks. So I think I am going to get rid of that leg back there. I can always tuck it behind. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I might be able to foreshorten the leg a little bit. This is something that they do in comic book poses a lot, where the knee is basically coming at camera. And then what I might be able to do is just pose this leg here, or shorten it a little bit. That way we still get that. Oh, that's looking kind of nice. Um, I might do that a little bit with the leg pulled out a little bit more. Oops. So instead of like the knee being so foreshortened, maybe I'll do it to where there's like just like a little bit of overlap. So that's like the upper leg. There. That's the upper leg. This is the knee patella. And then this is the lower leg. Maybe a little bit of length out of it. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. I like that. Okay. And then I'm not going to worry about the back leg because my basic philosophy behind it is going to be just get it out of the way. Right. And I'm not really going to know what the best way to get it out of the way is until I get it into posing. So, okay. I kind of like that pose. This will be number 2. Sorry, not a star. And then I have an idea of how I want him to be swinging into frame, and it's going to be non-traditional Spidey, a little bit more like flare maybe. So I'm going to make these just a little bit smaller, and then I'll piece together the performance after I get all of the key poses that I'm looking for. So I have this idea where I have him like, I kind of think of like almost like how some basketball players that kind of play a little bit flashy, like point guards that like to pass the ball behind their back. And so like I kind of think of like Miles, and like, he's from New York, and I know there's a very big basketball culture in New York. I happen to like basketball also. And thinking about Rucker Park and like the basketball players there, and you know, at Rucker, more than anything else, like it's about showing off as opposed to like playing, clean basketball or proper basketball. Anyway, so I was thinking, like, I wonder if I can do something where like kind of feels like he's throwing a behind the back pass. So like if this is his head, I probably need to turn the head a little bit more. So it's almost profile behind. But then I was thinking like maybe there's a way that I might be able to do something where he's like doing it behind the back like this. And then so what would that be like? So now I'm going to actually act it out because I'm not sure on what side the thumb would be. Okay. So it would be on the side of the body. This side. Like he'd be kind of throwing like a behind the back pass that way. What would I do with these legs? So immediately what my mind kind of goes to would be something like this. I don't know where I would put the other arm. Not quite sure I'm liking that yet. That idea is going to be pretty tough. So let me try again. I try my best to try and figure out the poses before I jump into Maya. That way I've got a good sense of what I would like to do. But there are times at which like I actually need the physical model in order to find out like really what I want to be doing. This might be one of those times. We will see. I'm not quite sure yet. So I'm testing out some overlap with like the angle of the body there. That might be a bit much. But because I do like this. I do like this posture. That's his torso. In order to make this clear, ideally I'd want this out in negative space. That's one of the things that I want to make sure of in both of these. Or in all of these, excuse me. So like ideally, like this would be out here. But this almost feels a little bit too awkward. I might be trying to force like a square peg into a round hole too much. Hmm. Yeah, that's feeling a little bit awkward. Okay, let's just keep going. I'm not going to try and force it. So let's go to the third pose instead. I've got an idea of what I'd like the third pose to be like. And it's a little bit closer to a traditional Spidey, but not super traditional, I don't think. Um, Not to me anyway. So it might be, we'll see. So this is kind of what I was thinking, um, where I would have, well, let's just test it out first. I'm not quite sure it's going to work, or I'm not quite sure, like, this is the pose that I'm going to want to go with. So thumb is on the outside. And then I kind of want to do something where I think I want a little more overlap in the body. I want to do something where like these legs and something maybe like this. And this one might be a little more foreshortened, maybe. There's some overlap there. And then the other arm, you're doing something like this. And then for now, we'll just give him a superhero hand. Yeah, that doesn't look bad. It looks okay. I think probably ending on some kind of a iconic Spider-Man pose and then maybe opening. So opening with a more non-traditional Spider-Man pose might be a good way to go. So this would um be implemented in my first pose, and then the more traditional one would be in my third pose. Okay, so let's do this. Let's do it like this, and then non-traditional Spidey. Yeah, okay. Okay, so this isn't bad. I'm getting some good twists. I'm not really liking the overall gesture, and like the limbs just kind of feel even. Like, so if I'm looking at this in silhouette, and then I'm just looking at the overall silhouette value, and kind of see how each of the limbs kind of feel like they have like equal weight. Don't really like that so much. Let's try something else, and then let's go to a fresh page. Okay. So I do want something where I'm taking advantage of the camera. I'm taking advantage of some foreshortening. I do want it to feel like somewhat comic booky. Um, you know what? Sorry, I just I just had an idea. There is a drawing I did of Spider-Man a long time ago. I remember I did it right after I saw Spider-Verse, and I was really inspired. And I think it was, I might look at this like later, but I believe it was like something like along these lines. So I think a web was shooting out this. Then I think I had this arm like pulling a web like here. And then I believe I had foreshortening happening here. And then this leg was either up like this or forward like this. I think both of those kind of work, right? So if I'm doing kind of two versions of this and I'm kind of looking at them in comparison, like a pose like this or like a pose like this, I think both of those kind of work. Oh, I'm kind of liking this one a little bit better, actually. This is kind of feels like it's suffering a little bit from what we were from a little bit of the same thing the previous one was suffering from. Yeah, okay. I'm liking this. I think what I'll do is get a little bit more gesture out of this. So let me redraw it again. So you can tell that I like to refine my poses as much as possible, and I like to redraw them and redraw them. Personally, the more I redraw them, the more connected to them I feel like, and it's a lot easier for me in my mind to put together what each piece of the body is doing, right? And so trying to get as specific as possible as I can in my head. So let's see, probably a slight tilt. Probably see some chin. And then what I think I'm going to do is like maybe a gesture like this. So let me delete this web real quick. I want him reaching through his shoulders. Every time or anytime you can really play with the distance between the cheek and the shoulder, especially in silhouette, it's just going to feel like there's a lot more effort and like feeling put into it. So sorry, thumb's on the wrong side, not on the inside. What am I doing? Chest is this way, so maybe the pelvis is probably this way then, pointing towards us. And then this arm, I want to see if I can just get it to where it's like just like a fist. It's kind of like pulling on the web like this. And then I like this gesture continuing. So what I think I'll do is maybe I'll try. I'm going to make a copy right now. Maybe I'll try foreshortening. Oh, just a little bit. So if this is the knee, this is the upper leg, this is the lower leg, and this is the foot. Yeah, so it's foreshortened a little bit, and then I can get. Oh, that's kind of feeling nice. Yeah, okay. That's feeling pretty good. Okay, maybe something along those lines. Real quickly, let's just try it out. I want to see what it feels like if I foreshorten this leg even more. I don't think I'm gonna like it, but let's just try it. Let's see. So if I get rid of this, I foreshorten this leg a lot. So that's like the knee and the upper leg, lower leg. It's not terrible, but I like the difference in length and size between these two. Okay, so I think this might be my number 3. And then let's go back to my number 1. So, whoops. Oh, yeah, that would be a good idea. Let's go ahead and save it. Give me 1 second. I'm going to put this in a reference folder and then just name this Spidey Thumbs. Okay. Okay. So the behind the back pass thing didn't work or isn't working quite like I had hoped, especially or at least not in this post. I might take a few more cracks at it, but I think I'm onto something with like the idea of it. So if I'm looking at 1 and 2, I'm gonna, you know what I'll do? Since I'm happy with like number 2, I think I'll go ahead and take this, and then put it here. That way I can see the 2. So I know where I've been and where I'm going. I'm gonna get rid of, actually, you know what? I'm gonna keep these just in case. And then let's continue doing number 1. So I'm going to keep these back here. But if I'm doing like a behind the back pass kind of, or like another way that I can make sure that and if I'm doing a behind the back pass. Oh, okay. That might be one way of doing it. Okay. So if the hand is like this instead. So sorry, it just looks like bunny ears at the moment, but like if the hand is like this instead, it's on its side, and then maybe this would be still pretty hard to do and pretty difficult because what I want, and what I think is important is that this should be off in negative space. Again, we want to pose for clarity. We want to make sure that it's without a doubt as clear as possible because there's going to be dynamic action, meaning it's going to be going fast. The camera's going to be moving, and so I don't want there to be any guessing at all. So in order to get some separation from his arm to his back and to the rest of the body, I might be able to do something like this, where if like this is his torso, this is his back arm. Might be able to do something like that. Even that still feels really awkward. I kind of like where I'm going with the legs though. It kind of feels like almost like skateboarding or kind of like surfing. That might be kind of cool. Hmm. Okay, let's follow that a little bit. I kind of like that gesture too. So, let's kind of see where that takes us. So if I've got like a gesture like this, and let me look at my other 2 again. So when I'm looking at these 2, I'll put this on another layer just so we can see it. I've got a gesture going like this way, right? Somewhat like that, I guess, too. But I also have like this kind of a gesture. Okay, so this gesture that I'm going to go for next, I haven't done quite yet. So I know that might work. So if I have his chest there, hips there. So if this leg is going like this, then this leg is either going up or it's like crossing like this. Okay, let's do 2. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. All right, so if this leg is straight, I'm going to let it go off for now just because I just want to see what the overall pose looks like. Not quite liking how that's looking. This pointed leg over here is kind of giving it like a gymnastics or ballet maybe. This one might be okay, but I think I might need to rotate it a little bit. So I can either do one that's like this. Let's say, for example, upper leg, lower leg, and then there's a cross like this. Yeah, this kind of is giving me the feeling of like kind of when skaters or skateboarders, they're called skaters, but they come up of a they come up off of the lip of a vert ramp, when they're kind of going up this way. It's kind of giving me like that kind of a vibe. So something like that might work. If I put the head here, yeah, that'll kind of give me what I'm looking for. It doesn't quite feel as like miles as I would hope. But let's follow this and let's see where it kind of takes us. So if I were to support this gesture with the other arm, I think things that I could probably do. Let me get rid of these. And then let me bring these over. Or excuse me, bring this over. And then I think some of the things I might be able to do with this arm. There's a couple of like obvious things that we can do, and I'll get those out of the way just so I'm not thinking about them anymore in my head. Right. So like one very obvious one would be this is the arm that he's like swinging from. And then ooh, that might be kind of cool. Like if he is outside. Yeah. So thumb pointing towards his back. So this way, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's bring this down. And if he was doing something where it was like this, that might be kind of cool. It kind of breaks against like the gesture a little bit, but I might be able to get something to work like that. I almost want to do something with his arm that makes it feel like it's shooting this way, only because like if I have the arm like somewhere this way, I think it'll almost feel closer to like skaters and where they like when they're doing something off of like a big jump or if like a big vert, they'll grab the board from underneath them. So I wonder if I can do something with his arm. Oh, okay. Hang on. Timeout. I think I got something. So I almost wonder like if like let's say this is the arm that he was holding the web with. And this leg is up even higher. Yeah, that might work. Get rid of this. That might be kind of cool. But then I think what I can do with this is probably make this just a little bit more supportive of the gesture that I'm trying to get across. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I think another version of this would technically be if I flipped the arms a little bit, but I'm gonna guess that I'm not gonna like that one only because like with the body being closed off to camera, I'm not gonna like that so much. So, for example, it would be instead of this arm being forward, it would be this arm. Kind of creates a lot of like confusion in the overlap though. Not sure if I'm liking how complicated this one looks. But then what would I be doing with his other arm? Yeah, I think this one might be the move. Okay. So I've got 3 poses that I'm pretty happy with. And then I do believe that I can kind of stitch them together in a way. That's kind of like the fun part about it, especially with Spider-Man, that you can come up with some really cool poses and then kind of worry about stitching them together later. I feel like there's more to be explored. So I'm going to do a little bit more exploration and then see what I can come up with. Okay, so I've done a lot more explorations here, and I think I found some things that feel a little bit more on in tune and like on like vibe with the character and like for the vibe that I'm kind of looking for. I'm not quite convinced yet that these are the selects I'm going to make, but they're going to be somewhere in this ballpark, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to use at least maybe one or two of these. This is more so to demonstrate like my workflow and like how I like to create things. And so what I'm finding is this particular gesture here with the arm. I'm doing it in one of the other poses that I've chosen already. But this in particular feels very Miles in relation to like the rest of the body. Like shooting like this, I think there's a shot in Spider-Verse where he kind of jumps off of the building, he shoots the web. Kind of this is feeling pretty good. Having the arm either go behind the body or behind the legs at the very least is seeming to feel like the vibe of like the behind the back pass that I was kind of looking for. Even something like this might be okay, but like this, how it's tucked behind the leg, or this, how it's tucked behind the body. I was testing out here like some like kind of kick flip legs. There's a couple of other things that I was like kind of testing out. This was feeling pretty good in motion, but I think this is more so probably going to be a breakdown more than anything else, not necessarily a key pose. Things like this were feeling pretty good, where like we're getting foreshortening and but like one knee's up like this. So we're getting opposing angles, but we're still getting a nice gesture throughout it. Something like this where they're kind of upside down or like on their backs a little bit. That's feeling kind of like on brand and kind of for the vibe I'm going for. So like I'm not too far off. I'm getting some of that in this pose. I might do some modifications to some of these. But again, just to reiterate my creative process, how I particularly like to go about things, and how I kind of craft performances in my head. So when we pick up in the next lesson and we see this again, it's going to be a lot more tied down. I'll make sure to do a recap to let you all know where I kind of landed. And we'll probably pick up a little bit more in terms of how we're going to be transitioning from key poses to key pose. Because at the moment, I'm just looking for my golden moments and my big phrases. So stay tuned for that in the next lesson.